Welcome again. We have seen and experienced so much since the beginning of this decade. We have seen sadness, we have seen anger and frustration, but we have also seen a determination to growth, educate, and to make a change. Due to the recent pandemic, we have all seen some big and small businesses who have suffered. But then we have seen a lot of businesses who have flourished. Today I'm excited to have Barbara Mowat here with us, who is an international trade business development specialist. She has helped tens and thousands of businesses succeed in a new market over the past 40 years. She has worked with government, private companies, and organizations around the world who have asked for her expertise in business development. She has always created a win-win situation through her extensive network. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you, Alma.
And thank you for coming onto this show and then having this conversation with me. And we have been in this pandemic for 3 months and we got to dress up.
I know, Alma, and I said when I came in, I went, look, I'm wearing heels. This is the first time since March the 6th, so it's been 3 months. So when I said, I hesitated to come on because I thought, am I ready? Am I ready? And it was like, I am going to get dressed from top to bottom instead of just showing the Zoom look with just the face and the top part. Even though I make a point of getting up, making my bed, doing my makeup, doing everything that I normally do. I just don't care if I'm on a Zoom call and wearing my slippers. I don't wear PJs, but I do wear slippers for comfort. Yeah. But to wear heels today, look at us. Look at our heels. Whoa.
Well, I have the famous Fluvak here today. I thought it would be nice to just admire him for what he has done for our community.
Of course.
Yes. And you're right, because it's been 3 months and we've been home, and I do the same every morning, get up, dress, do what my regular schedule is, because we still have to live the way we did. So we, in the past, so it's just, we don't leave the house doesn't mean we stop doing the regular things. It's just how our mental brain works.
I'm actually more busy now than ever because we've had to pivot our company and helping others that that are part of our Grow Your Biz advisory boards right across the country as well as globally. And it's constant. And because of the different time zones, I sometimes have to start at 5 a.m. and I'm still doing it at 12 at midnight because of the different time zones with different countries. Yeah. So I'm very busy, but I am definitely doing everything virtual now.
You know what? And this is you just touch on the topic of using technology, because I think we are using the technology to its best at these times, what it was supposed to meant to be, connecting with people across the world, different continents, even with the times that we can actually do that and grow your business from there. And now to go into your personal life, you are the owner of company Grow Your Biz and the Impact Communications, and you have a master in psychology. And my question to you is, how did you switch this unique teaching and counseling career into trade and international business development, and why?
I want to actually start this. I know this is a conversation, and I was thinking about this as I was driving here. And I just again saw the protests that were happening around the world. And I know that, we mentioned COVID, we've mentioned the kind of horrendous things that our global world is going into. So before I go into my personal life, I want to share something that I have never shared with anyone on film before. And I think that, your perception of me is that, oh, Barbara is successful. Look at what she's done. Look at, right? And people have this misperception of me that I have probably had a very privileged life. And I haven't. Similar to your background, I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. And while I'm not Black, I grew up as a Ukrainian Russian on the wrong side of the tracks in a little community where everybody knows each other's business. And the youngest of 5, and by the time I came, both my parents were alcoholics, and we had a boarding room. So there was always, we called them bushwhackers. They were all Slavic blood, Czechoslovakians, people who had escaped from Russia and Ukraine, etc. So I'm Ukrainian Russian. And I vividly remember that while I wasn't harassed because I was Black, I was harassed and teased because I was not on the right side of the tracks. They referred to, you're probably familiar with the cabbage rolls, right? They called them and teased me about, are you going home to garbage rolls? So there was a lot of humiliation that I went through. And I think that's important to note, because, so by the time I came along, the very first photograph of me was when I was 5 years old getting communion. There were no baby pictures of me. By that time, my parents were totally gone. And it was because I went to school, in a Catholic school.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my one teacher, Mrs. Gamble, who probably actually made me feel special. And I think that that's what we're going through now with all of the protests that are going on. It's like, I don't have to be Black to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
I felt it in a different way. So racism is always there. And thank goodness we're starting to change it and open it up and talk about it. That's why I think, you know what? I've never shared this with anyone. I think people think of me as this privileged person that has always had success, which has not been the case at all. And so that background is important to talk about the other things that I've done in my life. So I knew that I lost my mother when I was 11. So I've been on my own since I was 14. And I knew that there were three things I had to do in my life. And I knew this as a young child, walking to school, 1.5 miles. My kids laugh at me, right? Because they've had everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, my daughters, they have got everything, right? Different life. But for me, it was like, I'm going to make it. I'm going to get out of this little town and I am going to make something of my life. And I knew that for me, it had to deal with helping others. And so that was inside me all the time. Did not know how it was going to happen. So at 14 on my own, and I knew that I had to get education. I knew I had to have financial independence. And I knew that I had to make something of my life that I would be proud of. So those are the three things that sort of gave me my core values and my anchoring of what I wanted to do. I did not know that I wanted to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we live in a community called Abbotsford, right? And so what happened is I fell in love at the age of actually 16, got married at 17, but my husband was 4.5 years older than me. So 17 and 21, that's a big difference at that time. But I was obviously mature. I would run home. By this time, I was running the household. My father was still alive and we still had 3 boarders. So instead of going through high school where people would go for Cokes and play Coca-Cola, French fries, go to bowling, I'd be rushing home and making dinner. I'd be rushing home and paying bills. I'd be rushing home and cleaning the house. I'd be rushing home. So I was actually quite mature.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband-to-be said, I got to get out of this town. And I said, I can't leave my dad. But he said, but you have to. You need to get on with your life. And I said, only if I can get my education. Only if I'm going to be supported to go to school. And I didn't know how that was going to happen. So I got accepted. I was academically solid. So I got accepted in Trinity Western University, Simon Fraser University, and UBC. Got accepted into all of them. I chose SFU. And the reason we came to Abbotsford is because his brother ran a horse farm here at the end of Clearbrook Road. I'm telling you this story because I think you need to put it into perspective. But what happened was, so we got married here at the Trinity United Church. 9 months, 10 days after I was married, a son came. and I bawled. I was pregnant. I went, oh my God, this 1969. And Barry came home from work and he says, why are you crying? And I went, I'm pregnant. And he goes, oh, that's wonderful. And I went, wonderful for you. What about my education? He says, well, who says you can't go to school and have a baby at the same time? Very progressive at that time. I still give him credit for that. But I needed money. I didn't have anything. So I remember going to SFU to try to get a student loan. $5,000 is what I needed to get us through, etc. And the registrar sits across the desk and says to me, well, why should you be going to school? If it was your husband, there would be no problem. But why should you be the one going to school? I was horrified. There it was, 1969, and I got rejected for getting a student loan.
Because you're a woman?
Because I'm a woman. So you can see the trace, not racism as a Black American, or it's the Ukrainian, Russian immigrant, low-level immigrant, and then the school thing. And I went, I can't believe this. I cannot believe this. So I fought and I pursued it and I got my degree and I taught here. I taught everything from elementary, junior high, high school, taught at Yale, high school, then community college. And then I did my master's degree and I taught at UBC as a visiting faculty member every summer, did the summer sessions. So I taught everything. And then after 15 years of education, I was doing well. Mm-hmm. Now my success was coming. I was doing things that I loved to do because I didn't want to just teach, although I did everything. In high school, I taught Jerry Charles' sister. It was like everything from social studies, general math, English, all the different subjects. But when I started teaching at Douglas College, I was teaching career and lifestyle planning. And I knew after 15 years of counseling, I didn't want to hear any more depressed stories. Mm-hmm. I wanted to say, what else can I do? And this was 1980. And what happened in the early 80s? That's when the recession came. Mm-hmm. It was like the worst possible time to say, I quit. I'm going to start my own business. And it was like, Barbara, get a brain. But I had gone through the career and lifestyle planning that I was teaching everyone else. And I realized I was a closet entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And I can talk about that at a later time. But it was, that was the path I took. Yeah. It was a path where I went through struggles as a young child, mm-hmm. getting my education, knowing what I wanted, and making sure, and I continued to have children.
Yeah. So you knew your why because of your experiences
yes.
as a child. You have seen the pain. And, this is so true because it doesn't matter. Any successful person you read about, that's why I wanted to talk to you. This is another thing. I know you're successful, but I wanted to learn the reason behind the success. You have to work very hard, no matter who you are. Any human being who I have met or have learned about who are successful, they have a story. And each of us have a story.
That's right.
And that story is who we are today.
That's right.
So because of thank you for sharing. First, I have to say, I acknowledge and thank you, very humble that this is the first time you talked about your personal life and you talked on my show. I feel very humbled. And it is important to know that what do you do in helping women? And I guess this is where because one of the questions was, you have this ability to help so many people and businesses, but you choose women. And I guess it's because of your experience with how as a woman you were treated and you were asked for your loan, student loan, right? So I guess that explains a lot of it.
And, and I had sisters who probably the older sisters who all have passed away. Everyone has passed away, but except I have one sister, one brother. But I saw so many so many times in my life that what women need, and I believe everyone needs this, but I did focus on women because there's a lack of confidence and people need to be inspired. They need to know that they're worthy, that they're worthy, that never give up. You know, I've seen so much domestic violence. So as a counselor, that's what I experienced, right? People who were being abused mentally and physically, who were feeling that they can't go any further and they give up. And then it just passes on. And what I was trying to do is to say, no, we can do things together. We can definitely make sure that what is it that you want? So I always start with, what is your goal? What is your desire? And to really help people understand that we don't just choose one career anymore. Gone are those days. Life is a zigzag course. Life is a zigzag course where we try something. I mean, you've experienced this. When I first met you, you were into yoga. Then it was wedding planning. And now look at what you're doing. It's amazing, right? So I've even seen you grow. And you're the most, incredible woman who has just made it. But I'm sure your story is also very important.
Exactly. Everybody's stories are important. And that's who we are today. Again, whatever we do, I guess, when we finish our education, we have a career, but I guess it's a purpose of life. You figure out what's your purpose in life. Like yours, my purpose is to serve others, to help other people. And this conversation we are having, the reason we're having is how many people who are going to watch and get inspired, right? So we are always encouraging others because it's important. Stories does matter.
And if you take a look at what do most women want, families want it, husbands and wives want it, but most women want the following. They want to make sure that they have a better life than most, especially when I worked international in Africa and Afghanistan and India, etc. And I'll say, what do you want? We want a roof over our head. We want to have food for our children. We want our children to have better education than us. We want our children, right? It's just those basic. They're not asking necessarily for luxury. No. And how can we make that happen? And normally, and this is what happened for me in the 80s, which is why I got into what I did, is because that's when interest rates went way up, right? Remember, people were losing their houses. Our house went into foreclosure. It was just like all the savings were taken. The government came and took all of our RSPs. Everything was just taken, right? In 1981. We couldn't keep up with a 26% interest rate. That's what it was. I won't even name the bank, but I want to deal with them to this day because people have memories.
Yes.
And so what I realized is what people wanted, because everyone was blaming the banks. Oh, it's the financial institutions. And I went, no, it isn't. What these people want and need is they want to be able to sell their products. They want to be able to sell the jewelry. Everything I wear is usually from a home-based business that we helped start back in the 80s and 90s. When home-based businesses weren't allowed. And isn't that the irony of it all is now we're forced to work out of our homes?
Yes.
That's another story.
Yeah.
But my point is that people need access to markets. If you have a product or a service, then you can develop it and sell it. So we put together a program. We were the first in the world, which is how Uniquely BC started. Then Uniquely Alberta, then Uniquely Ontario, then Uniquely Canada, then Uniquely Slovenia. Then I got asked to sort of go all over to teach people about what do we have to do to understand how to do business development from whatever your product or service is. And in some ways that still occurs today. It's access to markets.
Access to markets. And now you talked about the 80s. And you have experienced that downtown. And you're here today. What is the significant difference between both?
I would say that there is, people are more educated now. And we hear this on television. I just heard it again this morning when I was watching even the global news that I always watch, Al Jazeera, BBC. I flip, right? Because I want to pick up the essence of everything. I think it's our young people. I think it's our youth who are much more educated, much more informed, and technology plays a big part of that. Now, we can be informed in ways that we don't necessarily want to see or hear, but we have to, because we are informed and educated. We have voices. You have a voice. You're here. You're doing a talk show. That's wonderful, because it is through our voices that we're going to be heard. And I think it's the confidence that we have today. We're much more aware. So I think that's the big difference. I mean, I had to, I quit the college at a very difficult time. And people said, Mowat, get a brain. You're giving up $68,000, you're 3 kids. And I went, yeah, I know. Yes, I know. But I'm ready for the next journey, whatever that journey is. I did not know how hard it would be.
But that's where not everybody can do that. That's where you took that step and you did not fall into the fear, and that's the courage. And I think a lot of women faces that fear because that holds them back of the fear. Well, if I do not know where I'm going, but I can't leave not till I know. So at that, I don't know if you can correct me, but I think that sometimes stops them. So what is your advice to those women who have that fear? How can they go forward?
I always start, if I was doing a session with you and I'd say, okay, tell me where you would love to see yourself in 3 to 5 years. So I think it starts, first of all, with self-awareness. And after self-awareness comes, I'll call it career awareness. What's out there? What are the possibilities? How can I possibly zero into doing from wedding planning to a talk show? And I'll come back to that courage in a moment. And then comes the decision-making skills. What do I have? I mean, then it becomes black and white. What do I have to do? What's the first step I have to do? I have to research what it's like. How many talk shows are there? Who would I collaborate with? So one is courage. You mentioned that.
Yeah.
Courage first. Second is confidence. Confidence to open myself up. And that's the self-awareness part. Confidence to be able to say, okay, I don't have all the answers. And I always use this phrase, sell your strengths and buy your weaknesses. Sell your strengths and buy your weaknesses. So confident, courage, confidence, then communication, right? I need to communicate. I need to communicate with the people. I need to communicate with people that might be able to help me put on my talk show. I might need to talk to a banker. I might need to talk, whoever it is, right? It's that communication. And I think the fourth one is collaboration, because we cannot do it alone. We need that collaboration. That's why Grow Your Biz exists, is because it's a support group where women come together every month. Every one of us, it doesn't matter how much you're making.
Yes.
It's a zero at the end.
Yes.
All of us have the same issues. How do I make that decision? How do I deal with human resources? How do I deal with marketing? What's out there? What do I need to know? Technology. I mean, there's just so much. So I have to be open. There's a saying, you have to just open up your kimono and show it all, right? And not be afraid to share, because it's like, I'm listening to you. I had that same problem, and here's how I dealt with it. Because we learn from each other. That's the collaboration and the communication. So courage, confidence, communication, collaboration. Sell your strengths, buy your weaknesses.
That is so true, because you have to be authentic. And this is the thing, not everybody knows that we all have some kind of struggles, and nothing comes to us easily. We always have to go through the struggle to get that. And you're right, collaboration. You have to talk about it openly, and you have to accept who you are. You don't have to always be the best. Right? You have to accept who you are. And if you accept it and not be the best, and that's when only you will open your gateway to learning.
We learn from our failures, right?
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
If we don't fail, we're not learning.
No, we are not.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right? So it's like, how many people did I lose in my membership in the last 6 weeks because of COVID? Okay, we can deal with it. How do we deal with it? What can we do to help them more?
Yes.
Which is why I started Tips for Tough Times, the weekly newsletter, the more webinars, the more free trial, whatever we have to do, because we have to be there for each other.
Exactly.
I think it was Winston Churchill who said, never waste a crisis. And he said that in front of Stalin and Roosevelt. Never waste a crisis. And that's when, after the World War II, that's when United Nations, International Monetary Fund, all the things, NATO, that's when it all, right? Let's never go through this again.
Yeah.
So I believe that during this time, we will not waste it. We will not waste COVID-19.
Yeah.
And we are there, people like you, sharing your talk show, getting people to talk will be amazing.
And, even in the COVID, yes, we're losing, but it's giving us new direction to think new ways.
Mm-hmm.
If everything was normal, we would never grow. But this is an opportunity to grow.
Absolutely.
So you have to always look at things that if it's not working, what I'm learning from this. And you go into different direction. And we had that conversation the other day too,
Exactly.
So it's important.
So speaking of the conversation we had, I think you asked me, what are you doing with Grow Your Biz?
Yeah.
And luckily, about 18 months, 2 years ago, I knew that I wanted to help more women in the world rather than just in Canada.
Yeah.
And only in Canada, in urban centers. It's easy, right? Toronto has 8 boards, Vancouver, right? What about the rural women in our country?
Mm-hmm.
What about the person in Flin Flon, Manitoba, Goose Bay, Labrador, Prince Rupert, BC? There's not going to be 20 women in their group, in their communities that can start a group. So we had to use technology.
Yes.
We had to look at ways in which we can start connecting these women with other people in the world. A person from one country can learn from another. So then it was like, but I've worked in 45 countries in the world. Why am I not looking at my global work?
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing pivoted to another.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the women I think I was talking to you about is a lovely woman, Margaret, from Uganda. So she's part of one of my global virtual boards, meets every third Wednesday of the month, has to be early in the morning to meet her 6 p.m., right? And Margaret, I said, so tell me about your business. And Margaret would not mind me sharing this because I think you might be able to help. Margaret has a business where she helps farmers in Uganda because what she was seeing is these young children, boys and girls, that were going every day and having to swath the crops, etc. And they were missing school. And she went, if we could only get their machinery to work better, how do we modernize their farm equipment? And we're talking old farm equipment. Mm-hmm. So I've been working with her now for 4 or 5 months. And I said, what is it that you need? And she said, you know what would be great, Barbara, is if you can reach out to your communities. And I went, I can. Abbotsford's a great farming community. Yeah. Abbotsford's an amazing farming community. And she said, there might be not the modern farm equipment, but the old tractors that might be on a piece of land that's like getting rusty or whatever. How can we mobilize enough farmers in Canada to be able to actually maybe do a shipment to, we do that in other areas. Why can't we do that for Margaret?
Yeah.
So I reached out to the TCS office and to TFO, which is Trade Facilitation Office in Vancouver. So I was going to do my big conference, right, at the end of May. That was last week. I had to cancel it because of COVID. But it doesn't cancel out completely. There are still things that we must do, that we can have an Accelerate Summit series that starts every month. We can still make the connections that we want. And Margaret and I first met in Rome in 2015 at a conference.
Wow.
So 4 years later, we meet up again. Mm-hmm. She's now a member of Grow Your Biz Global. But that's what can happen when you start reaching out to women in the world.
Yes.
Women elevating women, women working with each other. It's amazing what can happen.
And that's where we have to change the women's mindset too.
Mm.
That's the biggest challenge. You can be successful. Once you're successful as a leader or whatever business you're doing, it's important to help others grow too. Because I don't know, but I know we are sometimes become selfish to just have our success and not share it because we had that competition. But then somebody had taught us too. Somebody has given us these opportunities to be successful. Nobody gets to the top level by themselves. Like you said, the community.
So let me turn the interview over to you for a second. How did your mindset change? Who gave you that confidence?
I learned from others. I mean, again, I have my own story as a child, but you have to be strong enough to talk about it, and I do. It's on my website. That'll be a whole different
Yes.
conversation. But that's why I do this show, because I want to help other people. And other people, it's not about me on this show. It's about you here, you talking to the audience. It's about you bringing your experience to share, because you don't know which woman or which man or anybody who's watching you and listening to your viewpoints and the tips you just gave, that they just needed those. So it's all about, you're successful, now you're sharing with your experiences. How can others be successful? And you're doing it through your business to serve these women, right?
So isn't there a saying, it is in giving that we receive?
Yes, you have to give in order to receive.
Right.
That's it. Like
Yeah.
you can't think, you
Yeah.
cannot, you don't even know, you won't receive if you close that door of giving. It has to be open.
But it can be from anyone.
Anyone.
And I think that, and I am going to use you as an example here, for example, because I understand that one of your video people helped you make that decision, saw you in this role, and he's a man, right? So it's not that women just help each other. And I want to be very careful when I say that I only help women. I want to reach out to everyone, and I can take a look and see who has helped me in the past. And it could be a child, it could be a male, it could be a female,
Anybody.
it could be anyone.
Yeah.
So I just want to make that really clear, is that my world is not just catering to women.
Yes.
It's to everyone, because we're all one.
Yes.
We're all, together I guess that's that saying, together we share.
Yes.
Together we learn.
Yes.
And that is really important.
It is. And that's the thing, like personally for me too, it has just people came into my lives at that very moment.
Right.
And helped me where I needed, and they walked away. But I thank them. What I learned, when people help you, my turn is to pay it forward.
Right.
Right. So that's what I do, is pay it forward. And it doesn't matter who it is too.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
That's all it is. And we
agree.
learn, and it's like a cycle, and we have to keep on continuing. And you have done, like, I have known you for so many years. And yes, I started doing the decorating when I was home with my young children. I didn't want to work full time, but my background is business development in the finance industry. So, but that's my full time job. But when I was at home, I didn't want to work full time, be out. I want to be home with the kids. So you still have to use your skills. So I started doing decorating because I like putting things together, imagination, right?
Yes.
So that was part time, and I did that and enjoyed it.
Yes.
Right. So it did, like you said, it's never one career. You always grow, and things I learned from there, how to run your own business. Those are the little things that I actually looked and learned, and I know, and those skills are actually with me. I would have never learned in the other field I was doing. So you're always learning from, even
always,
if it's a failure,
always.
You still learn something.
Well, we have to have failure in order to take the next step.
Yeah.
Failure is something that we learn from.
Yes. So I want to share one of your inspiring stories of your clients.
So one of the most inspiring stories for me was in 2003, we were the first company, meaning Impact Communications, GroYourBiz didn't exist then. We were the first company to be asked by UNDP to go to Afghanistan. It was June 2003. The war was just over in March. And I went, oh, really? Like, can I bring a group together? So at that time, I had been working with the Robert Redford general manager and Toronto Guild Shop. So I brought 4 women, and it was to put together our access to markets. It was the first time in 25 years that a group, the 5 of us, went over to Afghanistan, and it was to work with the women to set up the Women's Business Economic Development Council, and to work with the women to help them look at their products, because we had a judging process, right? How can we help you access the global markets? It was an amazing experience of meeting with these wonderful women who came. We stayed at the Intercontinental Hotel, and it was 43 to 45 degrees. It was very hot. The Intercontinental Hotel still had bullet holes in the windows. There was limited electricity. We had a fan that would go off and on. And I'm giving you this scenario because I want you to imagine what we were going through. And what we have to do is the women brought in their products from the villages, etc. We were all getting ready for an exhibition, which we were going to do for them in Kabul. And so we're sitting around the table and we're judging these products. And one of the women had sent in, she was working with some limited women. There was about 10 to 12 of them. And they sent in their leather products to be judged. And the leather products, so we're judging away, right? And we had just judged the products, which smelled horrible. Can you imagine? They didn't have curing, but like they had nothing, right? The products were not very well received because they were so antiquated. They would need a lot of work. And our manager, who was looking after us from Afghanistan, she came in and she said, Barbara, Mahbooba wants to come in and see how her products have done. And I looked around the table and I went, oh my God, we don't talk to anybody. We give them the feedback after. And she goes, oh, but she has a little gift for you, all of you. And I went, oh, I don't know what to do. Now, the fans are coming off and on. So papers are flying all over. And I went, oh my God, I don't know what to do. So like you, I'm looking for my pen. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for my pen because my papers are there. And Faye Beck, who is the wife of Brent Beck, who is general manager for Robert Redford, she had this pen holder around her neck. And it was, and I looked at it and I went, where'd you get that? It was a beautiful, it was primitive, but it was beautifully made, a leather pen holder. And she put her pen in it. And I went, can I have your pen? She goes, can I have that? So she quickly took it off her neck and she gave it. She goes, I want it back. And I went, you'll get it back. So I was trying to think on my feet really fast because Mahbooba was coming into the room. And she had a gift for us that was these folders that she was giving to each of us jurors. And I went, oh, okay. And she wanted to know how she did. And I went, oh, Mahbooba. And I showed her this pen holder. Mm-hmm. And I said, Mahbooba, can you make these? And she goes, see, yes, I can make them. And I went, okay, can you make me 8 of them? Because I thought I wanted one for each of the judges. This is Wednesday morning at about 10 a.m., I'd say, maybe noon, Wednesday. And I said, she goes, yes, I'll make them. So she just takes takes a look at it. She doesn't even, because Faye won't let it go out of her sight, right? So she takes it, she sees it, and we give it back to Faye. Friday morning comes, and every morning while I'm there, because I'm leading the contingents, I'm leading the group, I have to meet at the United Nations at the Security Council. And there's all these men in the room, right? All these different people in the room. But I have to get up and but before I do that, by the way, Friday morning, Mahbooba comes in and remember, they have no electricity. Mm-hmm. And she brings me not 8 of these, and I didn't expect it in 2 days. She brings me not only 8 of these pen holders, she has 200 made in 2 days. 200. They have stayed up all night by candlelight. They have stitched these pen holders by hand. It's unbelievable, amazing. And I went, Mahbooba, and she's smiling because she's so proud of herself. And I said, you made 200 of these? And I said, how much are you selling them for? $1 US. I bought 20. Faye bought 20. Toronto Guild Shop bought 20. She sold $60 US in less than 10 minutes. Now I go to this UN Security Council. Mm-hmm. And we're going to do an exhibition on Saturday, the very next day. So I'm promoting it and saying, look, soldiers, men, everyone, families, you have wives, daughters back in the US and anywhere you're from, Britain, etc. Please come tomorrow to the exhibition. I would like you to buy from these women. I would like you to pick up something from these women. And I think it was a BBC reporter. I can't remember what, but a reporter, because I told them what we were doing. This is what we're doing. We're helping them develop products to access the markets. And he had the audacity to challenge me. And I'm at the podium.
Mhm.
He had the audacity to say, Barbara, do you really think you can make these women entrepreneurial? And I was stunned by the question. And I said, and I am wearing my pin holder with my pen in it.
Mhm.
And I looked down and I hold it up and I go, see this? See this? See this leather product? And I said, I gave this an order to Mabuba. Mabuba, please stand up. How many of these did you sell this morning? $60 US. They had not made $25 US in a whole year.
Hmm.
We are talking about these. This is June 2003.
Yeah.
So this is an example of, I said, I gave the order to Mabuba on Wednesday to make me 8 of them. She brought me 200 this morning in 2 days. I would, no offense to anybody from North America, I said in the audience, but I would be lucky if I gave something like this to a North American artist,
Mhm.
I'd be lucky to get a prototype in 3 months.
Mhm.
And I had 200. And then I went, are they entrepreneurial? I rest my case.
Yes.
I think that's an exact. So I brought some back to Abbotsford. Actually, the mayor prior to, I can't remember her name, the only female mayor we had, Mary Reeves. She came to my office in Abbotsford and I told her the story and she said, I want some of them. So she bought 20, Save on Foods. We brought over to, yeah. I mean, it was just like that was, and that was in 2003. Now I'm going to tell you a story about that. In 2013, I'm in Ottawa at a big Women's United Nations conference. And Michelle Bachelet is there, et cetera, right? High level people. And all of a sudden I get a tap on my back and I look and who was there? Mabuba Wazizi. I went, Mabuba. She goes, yes. She says, I need you to know that you came, we met in 2003. We had 10 women in the Women's Economic Council. She says, we now have 10,000 women.
Wow.
Okay, story doesn't end there. About 6 months ago, I get an email. She heard about Grow Your Biz. She's now in the UK, in London. She's still helping Afghanistan women, but she's now living in London because that's where her family is now. And she heard about Grow Your Biz and connected with me. So I now have photos from 2003, 2013, and 2020.
Wow.
Mabuba Wazizi still exists and she's still helping Afghanistan women. That is the trickle effect of women helping women.
Wow. You're
So
giving me
that's
the
my
goosebumps.
story.
Like it's just an inspiring story.
That is a great story. It's a great
It
story.
is.
So I would say that's an accomplishment.
It is. It is
And,
like where.
and I will give you a pen holder. I still have some.
Thank you. I would love to have
And
that
you
and
have to wear
support.
it, and you-
Yes.
Especially when you're going through the airport and got to write
Pen.
your name. Pens are handy.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing because that is so important to share these stories. Just doesn't matter which part of the world you live,
Mhm.
you can still be an entrepreneurial.
Mhm.
And because the world market where technology, we are world market now, you can actually be in the home technology and you can actually work and serve other countries and you can just do that.
Actually, out of that story came, I was on the front of a Costco magazine called Front Page, Abbotsford to Afghanistan.
You know what? I remember seeing
Do you
that.
remember that?
Yes, I
Yeah,
do
that's
remember
right.
that.
And I still have a burqa.
Yes.
I still have a burqa. I still have the pen holders. And I have still many beautiful objects from that wonderful, which
Wow.
was so frightening to go to. It was like, oh my God, how will we do this? We can do it. That was
Yeah.
a big stretch for me.
And you found a diamond there. Mabuba.
And
Cute.
I found Mabuba.
Yes.
And we're still now friends and colleagues.
I guess that's when it is. We all humans, even women, like we all have the skills, and we sometimes. This is another question I was going to ask: is for those women, Mabuba, you saw her work and you asked her to do something, and there are women out there who have like, they have this passion and they do these little things and they make it and they get compliment and they always get this, hey, have you thought about opening your own business? You're so good at that. Or you're so good in this. Like, they'll see these things. And some women just like, oh, I just do for fun and not thought about it. Dismiss it. Or they have that fear, how do I start it? Because they don't have the direction. They don't know what is that I need to do to make it to the next level. So what are your tips? I know you talked about the other in the beginning, but for those people who get this compliment, but then they're stay-home moms, or they are just finishing up university, want to get into the business industry.
So I hear I hear you.
Yes.
I think that there's a plethora. So that's why I did Grow Your Biz instead of the startup. There is a plethora of different programs out there that help. The Community Futures, the Women's Enterprise Center, the FE. There's so much out there for people that are needing to start their own businesses. I mean, that's what I did at Douglas College.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Career and Lifestyle Planning. Are you sure this is what you want? Do you understand what it's going to mean? Do you understand the steps? So I would direct those women. I don't see myself in that field anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We started there, but it was like, no, we now work with women like the Carolyn Crosses, Ondine Biomedical, I don't care about the revenue. I care about what is their growth plan. So I want the second stage of a woman entrepreneur, only because there's too much in the other field that I don't want to compete. I want to help others.
Yes.
So there are, I wrote the very first book, How to Start a Home-Based Business. Just take out the word home. It's out there. The manuals are out there. The books are out there. There are many opportunities for women to take that next step. Mm-hmm. So my answer to you is to have them probably meet with a college counselor, have them meet with the Community Futures person, have them meet with someone in their own community to begin with. And then there's so much online. So I can, there's a whole series of things that I could offer them to say, look, this is where you need to start. But it really is that one-to-one conversation they need to have. Mm-hmm. Have the one-to-one conversation, and not with people that are going to agree with you. Mm-hmm. Not with people. You're in the financial field. Yeah. You would be perfect. You are the first step. It's like, what's the reality that I have to face? But not to be discouraged. Mm-hmm. Not to be discouraged. Like if you really have passion, that's what I'm saying about self-awareness, right? If somebody says, oh, I love your earrings. Who made them? Oh, I made them. Oh, really?
Really? Yes. Yes.
Do you like making them? Would you consider making more than just one? Oh, no, it's too hard. Look at all the people making masks now, right?
Yes.
There's a lot of people making masks.
Well, that's what is the latest, like the businesses, right? The money is, right?
Right.
From there's one more question I want to ask you, because it is important to know this too. I know we always talk about success. What is the best way you have seen somebody deal with failure? Because that's a part of life too. And you have to learn.
Dealt with failure.
Yes. And how do we handle? Because I guess we all go with this mindset. You have this I'm going to be successful, because we all want to be successful. But the failure hits, and that's where either somebody learns and move forward, or somebody just give up.
I think one of the best books I've read in the last few years on that topic is by Adam Grant, called Originals, and I recommend it. And he has interviewed Elon Musk and all the ones that you would have thought were totally successful. They all had failures. Kentucky Fried Chicken, they all had failures. So the first thing, and I've written 3 articles for Costco magazine on this, the fear of failure. It takes a lot of courage to get up and say, this was my failure, but this is what I've learned from it. Organizations can learn from it. It's like, what did we do wrong? Where do we have to go? So the first thing is not to be afraid of it, and to be open about it, and to say, oh, wow, did I? There's a theme that's going around, but I can't say it on the air. But it starts with F, and there's big all over the world. They're in like 140 countries now, and they have people get up and share how they did the F, you can edit this out, how they effed up, and they share it, and what did they learn from it? And it's amazing what's coming out of that, because people are now brave enough. It's like the racism thing that's going on. It's like, just talk about it. Talk about your failures. I'm no longer afraid. For many years, I was embarrassed to say that we went into foreclosure in 1981. Our house was into foreclosure. We were 3 months behind. We were 3 months behind with the bank, right? It was like, oh my God, I have 3 kids. I just quit my job at Yale. What am I, like, it just went like this. It just went overnight, right? Overnight. And we thought, well, we've got savings, but the government had come in and they already took out all the art. Like, it was like we lost
your hard work. Yeah.
all the hard work.
Yes.
I was embarrassed to share that for many, many years. And then I went, no, what did we learn from it? Okay, all 3 of our kids went out berry farm. We picked berries. We went to the flea markets. We looked around. We just did everything we had to do. Yeah. We rolled up our sleeves and we went, what do we have to do?
And that's something you have already learned. So,
absolutely.
Because of your experiences, for this to start all over again, it was just like, oh, repetition. You were already knowing and how to start.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's a failure, and hard times will always be teaching you new ways to grow, and you will never fail because you always will figure out, if you lose everything, how to make it again.
Don't waste a crisis.
Don't waste a crisis.
Don't waste a crisis. Winston Churchill, right? And then after that, it was like everybody says it, don't waste a crisis.
Yeah.
And that's where it came from. It's like, we went through World War II.
Yeah.
What are we going through now? We have 2. Yeah. We have the racism and we have the COVID. We have two, right? Yeah. And people will not everybody will set up again. So what will they do? And we do have to help them, but we don't give it to them. We have to look at how do we work together to make it change. So I don't believe in handouts. Yes. But here's what I say. We don't need a handout. We need a hand up.
It isn't. And there's something I always learned from somebody they always used to say, one of my mentors who taught me yoga, he always you're a leader who go under and you lift up, like that's a forklift, right?
That's right.
And it always stuck with me.
That's right.
Because that's it. Somebody who's down, you're lifting them up because they are going to do their own work themselves, right? We don't do that, but they just need those words of encouragement. And I think those words, how you speak to other people and how you encourage, personally for me, I think when I was going through, they meant way more than somebody physically giving me something, because we already have that strength inside of us to do that. But it's the words that somebody encourages you to do it. And you're like, yes, it's how it works with our.
I remember being at a conference in Washington, D.C. about 2 years ago, and Wilbur Ross, the foreign trade minister for Trump, we were a big audience, and it was a panel on working in Africa. And he got up and started saying about Africa doesn't need more assistance. We need to develop trade, not give handouts. And I did stand up and say, it's not about a hands out, it's about a hands up. That there are many, many people. Yes, we need trade. Trade is the key to the end of poverty, helping people access markets. But in order to get there, they need the assistance. And that's where the programs and the training comes in. And sometimes it's monetary assistance to make sure that they have the farm equipment that they have, right? That's the difference. Yes. So trade is important. Yeah. But it's about a hands up, not a hands out.
Well, thank you for coming.
My
and
pleasure.
You know what? You are women of wisdom who have so much to offer, and I can just sit here for another couple hours and just listen to you, because your wisdom, your experiences is valuable, because for me personally, when you're speaking and you're giving those tips, it's just I'm thinking, how can I use those personally and how I can grow further from there? So thank you for coming here and having this conversation with me and or with our audience and sharing your experience. That was actually very humbling. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for watching. Leave a note in the comments and I would love to hear from you. To find links and additional resources from the show, visit amangill.com. See you on the next episode, and until then, stay inspired.